currently its name is Linden Place. When it was built in 1810, it was a residence. It didn't have a name to it. Historically, are you guys from New England?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the name DeWolf?
Yes.
Because it's a really important part of United States history and Rhode Island history. All right, there was a guy by the name of Simeon Potter. The Potter family lived in Bristol. He was a pirate. He was a privateer. He had a sister named Abigail. He thought she should be married. So in the 1700s, on one of his junkets for plantation, he picked up a kid by the name of Mark Anthony DeWolf. His dad lived on the plantations there. In bringing him back to Bristol, he introduced Abigail and Mark Simeon. They ultimately married Abigail and Mark Anthony DeWolf, but that's the origin of the DeWolf name. There were 15 kids, of which 13 survived.
Oh, wow.
It's kind of important because they were so influential, the DeWolf family, into banking, into politics, particularly also into slavery. One of the children named Charles had a son named George, and in 1810, George had that house built.
Right here.
That's correct. Yeah. The architect was Russell Warren. Have you guys been into Providence?
Yes.
Okay, you know the arcade building?
Yeah.
Okay. He was the architect of that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He also went south into South Carolina and he did some property designing there. So if you do reading on design of property and residences, there's a lot of similarities in South Carolina to the New England area, and that's because they have the same architect, similar architects in South Carolina. In 1825, George ran short of money. Slavery was really important. Other people made money off slavery. They built ships, they used nails, etc., etc. George owed a bunch of money, so in Christmas of 1825, George took his wife and kids and they hightailed it out of Rhode Island, they hightailed it out of New England. They went to their plantations
To
and
escape the
returned.
debt?
Bingo. There were 4 or 5 DeWolfs, a brother of George's, a cousin, who tried to keep some activity going within the building. I think there was a salon, there was a hairdresser, maybe a restaurant, just a lot of different stuff going on. But in 1860, and also Senator James DeWolf also ran some activity. But in 1865, the family said, that's it, we're done. We've got no interest in it. So we have this 5-year-old girl, Theodora, who left with her dad in 18. And this to me is kind of the romantic emotion part of the story.
Okay.
40 years later, in 1865, a knock on the door locally, and a guy by the name of Ed Colt says, want to buy the property. Came up with the money, bought the property, and returning to Bristol after a 40-year absence from a 5-year-old little girl, his 45-year-old Theodora DeWolf, back into her house. By this time, however, 2 things have happened. She's married to a guy by the name of Christopher Colt, and she's also become a widow.
I saw the Colt boat launch.
Bingo.
Okay.
We're going to get kind of travel to that. Yep. So they move into still a building. It didn't become Linden Place until later when Mrs. Colt planted linden trees on the property and then elsewhere. So then it got the name of Linden Place. Along with her at that time, part of the family is a man by the name of LeBaron Colt. He became a United States Senator. He also had a brother, Samuel Pomeroy Colt. When you came into Bristol from Provincetown and saw Colt State Park, on the right-hand side, there's 2 bulls. One of those is named Pomeroy, Samuel Pomeroy Colt, and the other is LeBaron. So that's kind of the history or background of the names of those 2 bulls.
How are you such an expert on this?
I just have interest in it. I just like that.
That's really
Fantastic.
So, in coming back to Bristol, Theodora tries to make right the debt that her father left, but and I guess there were books and legends like you wrote so much in families, etc. But it didn't work out. Samuel Pomeroy Colt married a girl by the name of Doris Bullock. And if you've done any reading, marriages, late 1800s, early 90s, you'll see cousins married cousins. So it isn't like, oh my God, they're really weird. I mean,
Hey, I got some hot cousins.
boom.
I'm kidding.
That's your commentary. All right.
I'm kidding.
Yeah. So
They're all taken. Damn it.
Mrs. DeWolf, Theodora, did not care for her. But nonetheless, Samuel married Doris. And they had 3 children, but the most important historically would be a son by the name of Russell and also a son by the name of Roswell. Just backing up to Samuel Pomeroy Colt, the U.S. rubber initially was started by Samuel Pomeroy. He was an industrialist and entrepreneur. So the National India Rubber Company, that's what he started. Fleet Bank, bank. What's Fleet Bank? Bank
Bank of America, but it was Bank of Boston.
Okay, yeah. Back up, Fleet, then go back into its earliest start, 1900s. That also was started by Samuel Pomeroy.
Do you know who invented the rubber sole?
Bill Rubber? I don't. No,
The rubber,
I'm
the
listening.
Bennigans.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And it was in Providence. That's why. There's a Bennigan building. That's why.
Rhode Island plays a significant part.
Yes.
So Russell ends up meeting an actress by the name of Ethel Barrymore. You fellas know the Barrymore history? You can just Google online. In the early 20th century, they were considered regal and the first family of stage and theater. 3 Barrymores: Ethel, John, and Linden. Ethel married Russell Colt, and they had a couple of children, but just to kind of deviate down a side street, Ethel's 2 brothers, John and Lionel. John was an actor, Lionel was an actor, and again, so was Ethel. In fact, she was an award-winning, when she went into film, she's an Academy Award winner, so it was something.
Is Drew Barrymore related?
Getting right to it.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Oh, right.
John, Ethel's brother, John, married a number of times. From one of his relationships, there was a son born, John Jr. From one of John's marriages, he married an Hungarian-born woman by the name of Jaid. Their daughter was Drew Barry.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of the relationship of the connection. All right, we'll come back off that side road, back onto the highway, but we're going to take a right, and I'll try to make this real quick because I know you got stuff to do. The name Drew, as in Drew Barrymore, that comes from her great-grandmother. In Pennsylvania, kind of the first family of the theater was the Drew family. A woman by the name of Louisa Lane married a guy who was Irish by the name of John Drew. It was her 3rd husband. However, from there, one of their children was a girl by the name of Georgiana Drew. Georgiana, in her marriage to a guy by the name of Henry Blythe, Henry wanted to be an actor. His father didn't want him to be an actor. When Henry decided to go forward, he said, I'm not going to embarrass my father. I won't keep the Blythe name. He was in a theater locally. He saw a picture of an actor named Barrymore. So Henry Blythe then takes on the name of Maurice Barrymore. So that's where that name comes from. They have their children again, including Georgiana, who was married Maurice Barrymore. So that brings the Drew name in. Back into Linden Place and the Samuel Pomeroy Colt. He's married. He also divorces. So there's Russell and Roswell, his sons. The last survivor was Roswell's widow in the late 60s or early 1970s. People offer the property to her. She says, I have no interest in it. Locally, people say, gee, if we don't buy it or somebody, maybe some developers are going to come along, make it condominiums. So they formed a group called Friends of Linden Place. Friends of Linden Place, they borrowed money, they were given money, they raised enough money to buy the piece of property. And by the way, that debt is paid off.
Oh, right.
They're very proud of that. And they began giving tours of Linden. I'm kind of in the final stages of this, and thanks
Sure.
for listening. When this place opened, back to the DeWolf name, the #1 slave trader in the United States of America was James DeWolf. One of these children.
Can you repeat that? The bus was going by.
Yep. The #1 slave trader in the United States of America was a man by the name of James DeWolf. He was from Bristol, again, one of those 15 DeWolf children. He was also a United States Senator. Even while he was a senator, he continued with his slave trade. And when you go into your history, you'll remember Rhode Island, to its credit, passed an anti-slavery law. Admittedly, it had little teeth and it was very weak. Into the 1700s, it got a little bit stronger, and James DeWolf said, "Oh, really? You're going to try to stop the slave trade?" So he went down to South Carolina. The United States in the early 1800s, remember there was a prohibition of importing slaves. So he said, "Oh yeah, no kidding, you're not going to stop me." So he went over to his plantations. So he continued with the slave trade up to and including his death. He also killed a slave in transport, but due to his influence with judges locally in the United States, he was found not guilty. But that kind of is, when this place opened as a place to tour like a museum, the docents would say to you, "Oh, James DeWolf, he was a rascal." So this guy that traded in slaves.
That's kind of a light version of what they're trying to say, yeah.
After a while, and a big push from a woman by the name of Sylvia Brown, who's a descendant of the Harrisers, of the Colts, DeWolfs as well, she said, "I really want to confront my history. It really isn't that pleasant." So she wrote to him, or maybe email by that time, about 110 survivors. Said, "Here's what I want to do. I want to take a trip to the plantations and to where the slavery took place in Africa." So she got responses. That was 150, that's not us, that was 200 years ago. We're too busy, we got other things going on. Why should we care? But she got about 12 or 15 positive responses. So they took a ship, and they went to Africa, they went to the plantations. She put something together called Traces of the Trade. And PBS showed it, so if you go online or ask for the film Traces of the Trade, you'll see her very well documented. She then approached Brown University. Real quickly, John Brown, while not a preponderance of money from him came from the slave trade, nonetheless there's a valid of enough connection to Brown University and John Brown, who was a partner of James DeWolf.
Ooh, interesting, because I'm not trying to stir things, but if people or students that are going there, these social justice warriors, these liberal lefties, if they find this out, it could change the name of the school essentially.
I'm
Because they're doing that everywhere, you know?
I'm surprised they haven't petitioned. There's nothing secret. So this Brown. That's
So Brown University is associated very closely
to John
with
Brown,
profit of slave trade.
Yeah, who's one of the Brown brothers. There were a couple who were abolitionists and Quakers, Moses Brown among them, and there was a couple of brothers that were really active in pro-slave. In any event, this film, Traces of the Trade, she comes down, she sits down with the president of Brown University, says, "Here's what I got, you really got to confront it." Now, in fairness, in reality, the president says, you know, we've got about 1 million, 2, 3, we have a lot of donors. Okay? We have a lot of donors. You're asking me to now announce, by the way, we've got an ugly history how we started. So she kept pushing and pushing until the president of Brown acquiesced, to her credit. And there's a tremendous report, essentially slavery during the 1800s, Brown University connection to it. And you go online, you can get that report. It is very well done. And so bit by bit, Brown University.
This fascinates me, so I'm going to look into this.
They acknowledge their history to it. And again, that's a tremendous report. You can just ask for a report on slavery, and that will. And it wasn't any Well, we'll paint with a brush. We'll put a fresh coat of paint. We'll get in some people who'll be say, yeah, a little bit of slavery, and then talk about it. Was a really good, thorough, in-depth report that they did.
I'm gonna look into that. Well, hey, I really appreciate your time.
All right.
And tell me about
2 minutes
that.
and I'll wrap it up. Promise.
Okay, 2 minutes. You got 2 minutes.
All right. Okay. Only because I think this is really interesting. William DeWolf, one of the descendants, during the years that they're trying to keep this place alive, resides on the property. One of his children is a daughter by the name Rosalie. So she's the granddaughter of James DeWolf, the #1 slave trader. William has a group of troubadours on the grounds to entertain. There's a guy by the name of John Hopper who's an abolitionist. John and Rosalie get together and marry. They have one child, William DeWolf Hopper Sr., who becomes the #1 leading actor in the early 20th century. William marries a number of times to include a woman named Elda Fury. She becomes Hedda Hopper. Significantly, go online and read who were the two leading gossip columnists in the 1900s, mid-1900s. It was Luella Parsons and Hedda Hopper, this guy's wife. They had one child. When you look at Perry Mason, the old black and white Perry Mason, his detective was a guy by the name of Paul Drake. Come in, Paul. Okay. That actor is William DeWolf Hopper Jr.
Interesting.
He is the great-great-great-grandson of James DeWolf, the slave trader.
Wow.
Now, make sure you get a picture of that school.
Okay.
That was Colt Memorial High School. Subsequent to the death of Theodora, Samuel Pomeroy's mother, he had that school built about 1910 to 1913. That's all marble. That's all funded by him.
All right.
That's really awesome.
I appreciate it.
You know, and do you work for the town or
I
with
don't.
any history? Like,
I don't.
know. Well, you know,
I
I appreciate you being
I'll
an
tell you what,
informed
if you
citizen.
guys come back in, or there's a, I know you won't call me for piano playing, but at the bottom there's a, and for your buddy, I had to have these made up 50 decks to get it.
Oh, I love this. This is great.
But there's an email address, so if you guys hold on to it, you know, ever want to email on some history or whatever the case,
Okay.
yeah, just give me a call or email.
Do you know who Mark Tabor is?
You know, there was a large family. Was his father in the business world?
I'm not sure about that, but he's a piano player,
Oh, okay.
and he's about your age. I mean, yeah.
Do you know where he's from?
Rhode Island.
No, just
Yeah.
beyond. But I didn't.
Providence, I guess.
Okay, yeah.
He was in Loaded Dice, if that's.
Oh, okay, yeah, right, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you
Okay,
so much.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming into
Oh,
Bristol.
thanks a lot.
Yeah,
I
all right.
appreciate it. Really a pleasure. I'm not
Thanks.
from
That's a
around
beautiful
here,
place. I used to deliver wedding supplies there.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, enjoy the day.
You too. Thank you. Watch out for those pillars driving into the driveway there.